YouTube, we are back for day 2 of the 3-day split series, and we have leg day. So yesterday we hit predominantly chest, more of a push type day, and different patterns, different exercises. Now we're going a bit of a quad primary focus leg day, but honestly I like to pair quads, hamstrings, everything together. So that's definitely the formula that we've got going on in today's session. Primary quads, I'll show you generally how I like to warm up for leg days in terms of practical warm up, and then we'll get into our main session. You'll see that there's a lot of reliance on machines within this session, so I like to typically isolate quads quite a lot during my leg days, as I find that to be more functional, honestly, especially when your objective is bodybuilding. But also it means we can distribute our exercises a little bit more and get different musculature working at different length tension relationships. And mechanical strain is number 1 for muscle growth. So being able to get some high load in different positions is our goal without super amounts of fatigue, which sometimes we want that with free weight exercises and the increased stability demands, and other times we don't want that. So you'll kind of see how we utilize the free weight exercise actually for our opposite muscle group. So in this case it'll be glute hamstrings, and then we use our machines more so for the quad isolation load. And that could be open to interpretation, how you want to distribute your session and how you want to distribute the different loads. Because this is our A day of our 3-day split, you'll kind of see the opposite in terms of exercise selection for the B day split. So make sure you keep posted for that. But I like to go this order: chest, leg day, back, because generally speaking we have RDL today, so that gets a little bit of those spinal erectors, so that lower back. So that means I don't really need to focus on that area as much tomorrow, so I can kind of give that a bit of a rest. And because those erectors are a little bit fatigued, some of those compensatory patterns that you get in your back exercises, where the erectors kind of come in and you get hip extension and things like that, normally I find that those are actually dulled down a little bit because you are a little bit tired and tight, so you end up isolating more of like the mid back and the upper back. That's a personal preference. Some people might want to run back day before leg day, or maybe leg day even first and go legs, chest, back. I just find that normally when I've got that in there, it means that I'm getting at least 3 days, 4 days recovery from the back and the lower body when I do my next leg day session. And I want those areas to be a little bit more recovered, because I generally find that, for me at least, the legs are the slowest thing to recover. I'm always a little bit more sore residually from leg day sessions, whereas chest day I can probably hit that a little bit more frequently as I'm a bit more accommodated to those loads. So that's the general premise of the format of the 3-day split. And the last thing I'll kind of say is on that recovery piece is the other thing is as well, like, you can use this video and actually run this as a 6-day split. If you don't feel like your body needs that additional rest day, every individual is slightly different. So basically listen to your own body and run the split that works best for you. We're just showing you the ideal split format for a 3-day split. In the next series of videos I'll probably do a 4-day split, and so on and so forth. So we're almost at the gym, so make sure that you stick around and we'll see you at the gym for the session. Alright, so we made it to the gym. So we got our first warm-up exercise where knee sleeves become a nice, useful addition to this, so that you're not getting crushed by the pad. But essentially, let's get a quick warm-up in. We just did some double leg knee extension. We do 3 kind of quick sets, no real rest breaks between. We're not trying to go to fatigue or anything like that, so no real high rep ranges. And then we finish off with some isos at roughly about 90% of my one leg, 1 RM. And so we do some 10-second holds, little clusters, and that gets the legs feeling nice and warm, gets the tendons warmed up, gets particularly the knee joint
feeling loose and has an analgesic effect in terms of reducing pain. I have a little bit of patellar tendonitis that comes now and then, especially on squat days. But whenever I hit this beforehand, it warms that tendon up nice and well, warms that joint up. So that's why I like the isometrics in this situation. So we just get some moving and grooving, some isotonics, nice and easy, nothing too heavy, nothing too crazy, and then we switch up to that weight for that single leg where we go up on 2, hold for 1, and then we get a little eccentric in there as well as a bonus. So I'm not gonna do crazy amount of reps here, and it's just gonna be pretty quick shotgun. Normally hit 4 or 5, just getting used to moving and grooving, getting some blood flow into the legs. And as things start to get a little heavier, just take a little pause if you need it, but nothing too crazy. Alright, so what we got here is roughly about 95% of my max that I can hold in this 60-degree-ish knee angle. And the reason why we choose 60 degrees is essentially that puts the patella in the most mechanically advantageous in terms of strain. So we get those collagen fibers basically sliding around in there, and then that excitation helps with the collagen matrix being remodeled and helps with tendon stiffness and strain adaptations as well. So we go up on 2, switch to 1. It's going to be a quick 10 count in my head, nothing crazy. So we get 30 seconds in, so 10 seconds, 3 reps, and then we go over to the pendulum squat. So I like to put that pendulum squat in there as the first exercise, so we'll see you over there. So as we get set up for this, I like to do a feeder set where essentially we do about 5 or 6 reps, and then we move up into our working weight for the day. And honestly, I kind of hate this machine because it's so tough. But before I do that, just to get like a little bit of range in the quads, I typically will hit a few reverse curls, Nordic curls, just to get some stretch on the quad. You can also use the machine just as like a little bit of assistance if you want. And that way, we're feeling nice and loose with some deep knee bending after getting nice and warm on the knee extension. So we don't have to do a crazy amount of reps here, just 4 reps, and then that way we should have stretched the whole quads, stayed in hip extension. So now when we go into our hip flexion, we should feel like we can get deep knee flexion, deep hip flexion, things like that. So we're going to hit a warm-up and then go from there. So this one is always hit and miss for me in terms of how it feels. Okay. So not bad. Take a minute 30 rest, and then we'll add a plate. As we rest for this first working set, I'm always humbled by this machine because it's the one where we can definitely get deep knee flexion, and it definitely isolates the quads pretty well. And honestly, I just feel like this is the hardest squat machine that you can do. Like leg press, even hack squat, you can generally do more plates and get away with it because the machine's giving you some added stability. But this pendulum motion, you're pushing kind of up and back, and it definitely is a harder squat pattern to do overall. So we're about at rest, so we'll hit this next set. How this feels. Reps. We got 2 minutes rest, and then we try and rep match in this next working set. I normally do a minimum 2 working sets here. I might add a third, sometimes a drop set or a back off set, depending on how tight my quads are feeling. Right now, not the worst. So the question remains, can we get 7 again? That is the big question. That was tasty. Gotta catch our breath here. So plan is 1 last working set, stay at the same weight. We're going to failure, so we're gonna have this be our friend, and it's gonna stop us in that bottom position. So gonna go full concentric failure, fail out in the bottom, and then we crawl out of the machine with our tail between our legs. But I want to make sure that we're not leaving any reps in reserve for this last set. And so we've got another 45-ish seconds of rest. So probably check out the camera angles and make sure we're good. All right, last set. Trying to get as many reps as we can. So we're going to failure. And that, my friends, is failure. Probably need a little bit more rest, if I'm being honest. Maybe could have squeezed that last rep out, but that's good. Don't leave anything on the table. The most awkward part of this is getting the machine back to where it started. Alright, so that's pendulum squat done. Now for RDL. So quick transition from squat to RDL. We're just going to again do 1 feeder set here, 6 reps, kind of similar style to what we just did, and then we hit the main 2 working sets. So the difference between the past primary exercise and this primary exercise in the A and B is we just take 1 set off. So we hit 2 working sets, and then if I'm not happy with the volume, sometimes I'll drop set that last set as well. I'm actually going to take my knee sleeves down for this. pretty light, pretty easy. We'll add a plate each side, and then we'll work from there. Alright, so we added a plate and a quarter. First working set. I'm gonna use straps so I don't want grip to become my limiting factor here. And I'm not wearing a belt. Typically I would probably use a belt, but I didn't bring one, so we're not using the belt right now. And also I realized I set up my spotter arms just that one little bit too low, so we get an extra bonus rack pull rep in, which is fine. I like the hook grip straps from Iron Mind, quick release straps for this type of exercise. So if I do fail, I just let go and the straps unravel pretty nicely. Alright, this bar is pretty shiny, pretty slippy. So I'm gonna go down there, do a little drop set. So one of the hardest things right now is doing this program as part of a cut. I feel like I can't push anywhere near the intensities that I've been doing in the past. And so energy's scarce, and that's not me making an excuse, but that was my program load for 6 today. And form is breaking at 3 reps. So if in doubt, go down in weight. Don't sacrifice form for ego and function. So we want to make sure that we're executing it correctly, because the muscle knows strain, and if the muscle's a little tired and we still want to get some mechanical strain through, we're best off using slightly lighter loads. Set this one again, not the ideal weight for us, but I think we hit 8 reps in that last set. I have to review the footage, but we'll get this next one and then move into a different squat pattern. Blast the quads some more, which is always fun. Always fun. Back was the limiting factor in today. So that's RDL's done. Now we switch back to quads. So we just got done with RDL, which now means we move back into squat, or a squat-based pattern in terms of leg press. So we actually switched to a single leg press. So we're just gonna get 2 sets in each side. Before then we switch back to a hamstring curl, and then we move back again to quads. I'll switch up quite a lot in terms of the exercise that I do. Sometimes I'll hit rear foot elevated split squat, Smith machine squat, front squat, or something to that kind of nature, split squat patterns. Given the way that my back felt in the RDL, I'm gonna take some of the hinge and stability out of it so I can more so focus on targeting quads and not being limited by my hinging pattern. So that's the reason behind switching to the leg press for this. But you can alternate any exercise in here. Rear foot elevated split squat would probably be my go-to if my back wasn't feeling a little tight from RDL. So let's hit single leg. Right. All right, 2 minutes rest, then we'll hit that second set. Single leg press, done. Alright, so on leg day, we actually treat calves like a primary exercise, so we put it earlier in the workout rather than just tacking it on at the end. And so we go from our single leg press, then now to single leg calf raise, and we're actually going to focus our attention in the bottom half of the range of motion. So we end up doing a lengthened partial position because one, some of the latest research seems to be trending towards that being very stimulating for hypertrophy. But then what we actually do is we switch, once we get mechanical failure there, we switch to a 2 up, 1 down, controlled eccentric. So then we're actually getting the full range of motion for the eccentric phase, because concentrically we're going to fail first in any exercise most of the time without doing a bit of a cheat rep. So this is a way to essentially do a mechanical drop set for this calves. So when you hit fatigue and that concentric failure, you can then go 2 up, 1 down to get some extra reps in. Get a little rest break in, but as you can see, we fail out in the bottom and we get as many reps as we can before failing, and typically the mind is what fails us first. But great way to get a quick calf pump is hitting bottom half of the rep range and then focusing on some 2 up, 1 down. We're just trying to get those puppies to grow. Alright, so now we switch over to hamstring, where we do a single leg up, and then once we hit failure, kind of similar to what we did calf raise, we then bring the other side in, and then we do some eccentric control work, so 2 up, 1 down. So again, sneaking in some extra volume for hamstrings, treating the accessory work with volume. We didn't hit hamstring from a knee flexion type pattern. We hit it with RDL, which is kind of a bit more hip dominant, so more proximal hamstring. So we get some volume here, then we have some quads to finish, and then some ab and adduction, and then we're done for the leg day. So it's only 2 sets here. Because of the volume, it's kind of a mechanical superset in a sense, and so we'll get a decent amount of work in, and then we'll go into our quad exercise. A little rest just to catch our breath for the right side. For some reason, I'm feeling the arch of my foot. Fatigued. Oh. Alright, 2 minutes rest. Hamstring's done. Let's go and finish some quads. So, you'll notice we essentially just did a lap of the gym, and so we end up back where we started. Whew, that's nice and light there. I feel forever was on that machine last. So, With this one, we're just going 2 legs, getting as many reps as we can, and then rest, pause. So we pause, get as many reps as we can, rest, pause, many reps as we can until we hit failure. So a bit of a fatigue volume finisher. People are going to be like, oh my god, calcium ions, edema, fatigue. That's fine. We're hitting legs twice a week. We're going to be okay. We're going to recover. If I wanted to do another leg session tomorrow, probably wouldn't hit this amount of volume. We'd probably split it up quite conservatively across 2 different sessions. But I'm trying to maximize the time that I'm in the gym. And if someone's going to turn around and tell me that this is sacrificing gains, I want you to show me the evidence, because there's no study out there that actually shows that that happens. As long as we get in sets across a week, we can probably go up to about 50, 60 sets in a week and still make great growth and gains, especially as your training age goes on. So I don't want any science-based lifter who's a wannabe telling me that there's evidence that this is wrong. Try it out, give it a go, and then we'll go from there. Oh. Okay. Alright. Brief little rest. I like 5 deep breaths. And then we're back into it. One more. Come on. 5 deep breaths. We're almost there. If you okay. That's failure. Alright, now for adduction. Alright, finishing us off, we got freaky and cheeky. So, freaky is our adductions, 2 sets, and then cheeky is our abductions. So I like to do 1 lean back and then 1 lean forward for both. And we just superset these, so straight into the next one. Then when we lean forward in this one, so we call them freaky and cheeky because with the adductions you get real freaky, and in here you get the nice little glute medius, which is the cheeky. And the fun thing about getting into this one is doing the splits. Almost there. Almost there. Oh, and that's freaky and cheeky done, and our leg day done.
Alright, so we hit it. Leg day, part of the 3-day split. As you saw when we were in there, primarily quad focus, but we still hit hamstrings with a fairly decent amount of volume, and then we also accessorized with calves, ab and adductors, and so that really covers the basis for me. And when I like to program these types of days within a 3-day split, I always think about it as we're always going to hit a leg day every 4th day. So in terms of, we got back tomorrow, we'd have an off day, we'd then reload with a push day, and then we have legs again. So kind of every 4th day we've got a leg day in there, so we can afford to give ourselves a little bit more volume in this type of split, especially if we are having a true recovery day. Now if you decide to run a 4-day, 5-day, 6-day split, might want to back off a little bit with some of the higher volume stuff, maybe do some lower repetitions, maybe do a little bit higher intensity, maybe take a set off here or there, or maybe even just take out one exercise. But overall, I like to cover my bases when it comes to programming leg day. So if we have, like we did today, a little bit of a warm-up where isometrics, I generally throw in isometrics early in the session to increase neural drive in a safer manner, also get a little bit of the contractile properties going, so those higher motor units, recruiting those, and putting us in a lengthened position that also targets your connective tissue, so your tendons, so they get a little bit of load too, before going into your heavier exercises where the tendon is still going to get loaded, but it serves as a nice isolated warm-up in a safe manner. And so it can be quick, it can be effective, and then you can move into your higher intensities for your primary pattern. And I always put the hardest exercise first within a program. Having the pendulum squat in there, that is where I like to go fairly heavy, fairly quick, and it's the hardest exercise I think of all squats, especially the machine-based squats. So I like to program that first in there, and then pairing that with more of a hip dominant pattern, because yeah, we are getting a slight hip hinge in a squat pattern, but we're primarily hitting quads, there's some glute in there, so what better to then get the hamstrings under lev than some RDL work, and that's why we follow that up with the RDLs. And today, honestly, I wasn't feeling the greatest in the RDLs, a little bit of lower back tightness, which don't typically feel normally in those sets, so that's always an indication to listen to your body, do a back off set like we did, instead of trying to push the weights and the intensities just because it says it on paper that I should have been hitting 80% of 1 rep max today. Easily back off, get the repetition volume in. We did switch up. Typically I would have had dumbbell rear foot elevated split squat or a Smith machine rear foot elevated split squat, but because my back was feeling a little tight, went and sat down, got into the shuttle leg press instead. So then that way we could still get some isolated quad work, still work single leg without the stability requirement. And that is why machines can still be really effective in terms of getting the dose that you want. So we got a lot more targeted quad load, again a little bit of glute load in there as well, but with that lower foot position on the leg press, we're primarily getting our quads recruited in that exercise. And then where we smash hamstrings is in that leg curl position, prone leg curl. I feel like that exercise got a little bit of criticism from the sprinting world as not being a functional exercise, but I think now we're starting to lean away from that maybe, although I do think Nordic hamstrings get a bit of hate as well. So if you don't have a leg curl machine, you can always hit Nordics. I find those way more difficult than the prone leg curl. But the thing that I like about the leg curl is the fact, again, we can isolate with single leg, but then we can go and do a 2 up, 1 down. We didn't do that for the leg press quad sets because we ended up having the leg extension a little bit later on. So I knew I was going to get a little bit more quad load through a different exercise. Anyway, because those two machines are generally paired pretty close to each other in the gym, that's where I like to put the leg extension back in, so we kind of almost do a big lap of the gym before finishing off with some abductor and adduction work. And I actually completely forgot about the calves, and I feel like a lot of people do that within their sessions. They forget about isolated calf work, And I treat that now earlier in my sessions, and that's where I'm so used to putting it at the end. You know, it's the last muscle group of the day. Calves never really get fatigued from any of the other primary sets, so you can hit them with a pretty high intensity at the end. But now I like to put them earlier on in the session, so they do get that focused effort, because I always feel like you half-ass the kind of last sets of your exercises generally in a program because you want to go home, you're tired. So treating calves like biceps, I made that comment in that everybody wants to smash as many curls as they can, so we do that with the calves. And that's where we actually really focused on the length and partial position of the calves, as I feel like that's where most people miss out. We're so used to doing the raise that we don't typically go and hit that deficit. So that bottom half might be just as stimulating, if not more stimulating, than doing full range of motion. So I like to, on my A day, get that bottom half in before then go into a 2 up, 1 down. And I'm still going to be in the camp that I think eccentric load is going to be a little bit more stimulating than concentric load when it comes to muscle hypertrophy. So we're in a little experiment right now, seeing if we can grow the calves that way with 2 exposures a week. And as we go on through this and we add an extra day, we'll end up hitting this with 3 exposures a week. And then at the final block for the last 2 weeks, we'll go 4 exposures for calves in a week. And we'll see if we can make those puppies grow. And so overall, I feel like it's a fairly simple leg day. Like, people are going to watch this and go, well, nothing crazy happened in this leg day. And the basics are best. Throughout my coaching career, I've found that coaching athletes, coaching general population, people who want to bodybuild, people who just want to get stronger, the basics will always trump any fancy exercise out there. So don't be afraid to do the basics, and all we need to do is sprinkle in a little bit of exercise variation, a little bit of different volume, a little bit of different intensity, and we're going to see changes and adaptations along the road. I'll say this a lot during this series, but all roads do typically lead to Rome, especially the younger training age you are. So don't get bogged down in the best exercise selection and the best frequency and all that kind of stuff. Just do the basic stuff really well until you have to force yourself to progress. Once you're there, that's when you start getting creative. So I hope you enjoyed today's leg day session. We have another session coming up tomorrow with back day. So hopefully that lower back tightness has gone a little bit so I can get through that back day. But if you have enjoyed this so far in this little series and you are learning stuff, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because there's plenty more of this content coming. And don't forget to leave a comment, because I'm interested in hearing other people's structure on a 3-day split and how they program their leg day as well. So don't be afraid, don't be a stranger, because I want to grow this community organically, and I really want to keep the being organic discussion as well. Most importantly, make sure you hit that notification button as well so you get ready for that next video that's going to be released tomorrow. And we will see you then for back day. Peace.